It's kind of hard to believe we are halfway through 2025, right? The midway point of the year. So today, we're using this day as a reminder to check in, specifically concerning your finances. Cory Sickles, the owner of Safe Harbor Wealth Advisors, here to share a few of the most important things to look at. You want us to all stay on track, Cory, because that is the goal, right? To kind of check your status and not just leave it there.
You're exactly right. You know, one of the things I think is always good, I mean, once a year you go in and maybe go in for a doctor checkup.
Yeah.
You know, but with your finances, you might want to do it a little bit more often just because things change. And you also just want to make sure, are you still on track, you know, for whatever financial goals you might have as well.
Exactly. Okay, so the first thing, what would you say when it comes to this mid-year checkup that we're looking at? There's a lot of different portions and pieces of our financial plan, right?
Right. The first thing I think you want to look at is your spending. And you know, it's a good time. Everything's electronic anymore.
Yeah.
You should be able to run something that's pretty quick and accurate that says, hey, how much have I spent, you know, through June or through July of this year so far? And you can also then kind of compare that, you know, maybe what did you do last year? But more importantly, you just want to make sure that you know where your money's going.
Yeah.
There might be lots of, you know, we're all bad about streaming, you know, subscriptions and all these other type of subscriptions you might have. It's a good time to just say, hey, if you're not using them, get rid of them, tighten that budget a little bit more, and this is a good time to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think knowing, like, even when you're saying comparing to last year, knowing at the midpoint can be very helpful because obviously things have gotten more expensive, right, in the world. So you might be thinking, well, I'm buying the same stuff, I'm doing the same things, but maybe it's not exactly on line with the financial, you know, spending that you had last year.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And when you start talking about expensive things, I mean, groceries are just so much more expensive than they were 1 or 2 years ago, but it's just everyday spending's gone up. And you just want to make sure you know where your money's going so you can be able to potentially save.
Okay, so after you have looked at all that, you know what you're spending, you know what you're taking in, what comes next?
Well, you know, obviously, I think one of the things you want to try to do is save somewhere between 10 to 15% of whatever your gross income is.
Okay.
So you look at what you're saving, you know, put in your 401k. Always make sure you're trying to at least put in that match as well, right? Because if they're going to give you 3-6%, you want to make sure you're not giving away free money. But by looking at your budget and you find out that maybe you're spending less than you thought. Hopefully you're in a situation like that.
Yeah.
You might be able to maybe even save bump up your contributions on your 401k or 403b or whatever your retirement savings plan is.
Yeah. Are people striving still to get to maybe that 15%? I feel like that's long been the goal when it comes to saving for the 401k.
I think that's always, here's the way I would say it. The more that you can save, the earlier that you can save, it's really going to help you out when you get in your 50s and 60s and approach, you know, retirement, just with compound interest and things like that as well. So yes, I think you should strive for that, try to get to that 15%, and it might be difficult to do that. But even if you can, you know, maybe just increase it by 1% or even 2%,
right,
that's going to add up over time.
Okay, certainly. Okay, the other thing is your investment performance, right? What are you looking at when it comes to that, and what should you maybe do with your portfolio?
The big part of this is you want to look at your allocations and your risk tolerance. You know, as you age, you might become less risky, or you might be right now with what's going on from a political standpoint. And because I know a lot of people get, you know, they take political with their finances. I don't know if you like where we're going, what direction we're going, but it might be a good time just to make sure it's meeting your needs, be able to pull back. Because the way I look at it is, if the market drops 15% and your portfolio drops 15%, are you okay with that?
Are you willing to take that risk on?
And if you're not willing to take that total risk on, then you want to make sure you're allocated, whether it's 50% stocks, 50% bonds, or whatever that risk tolerance level is for you that you want to try to be able to meet.
Cory, you mentioned, of course, the savings goals earlier, right? And when we're talking about that emergency fund that you need to have, kind of that savings plan, what are we looking at there?
Ideally, you want 3 to 6 months in an emergency fund in case something does pop up.
Yeah.
So maybe you had a bad year last year. So the first part of the year, hopefully you've been adding money into that. If not, this is a good time to be able to, you know, if you're looking at your budget, maybe throw a few more dollars in per month into your emergency fund, because things do happen.
Yeah.
You will have to dive into that, and the one thing you don't want to do is go out and take a loan from your 401k or put it on a credit card that's paying over 20% interest right now.
And I think that the takeaway, Cory, of course, is that a foolproof retirement, all of the things that you want and that you're hoping for, that you've worked for your whole life, doesn't happen by accident. It's not going to do it by itself, right? The work has to be done by a professional, by you, kind of getting together and sharing that vision.
It is, and I think this is a great time, too, to have your annual review with your advisor, too, because a good advisor should be able to say, hey, you are on track to have the retirement that you want.
Exactly.
What are some things that we might be able to help you with in order to save more, whether it's for emergency fund or retirement, just to make sure that you're going to be in a better position, not only this year, next year, and the year after that.
All right, perfect. Of course, Cory, free consultations. He has 2 local offices, Easton and Dublin, so you can meet with him and find out if you're on track, if you don't have somebody to kind of check with, or a second opinion for sure with Safe Harbor. So thank you, Cory.
Thank you, Robin.